Hey, William. I'm sorry, good sir, to ruin your nap, but I'm gonna have to get my coat. It's cold outside. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to Roots Refuge Farm. The cold has finally come to South Carolina, and I'm not gonna complain because I know many of you have been dealing with genuine, like, Arctic frigidness. And though it is currently freezing, you know, I definitely don't have it bad. I will tell you, it is mid-January, and this is the first time this winter that I have, like, really needed warm clothes. Other than, like, you know, sweaters and cardigans and light jackets. Like, I'm having to address my wardrobe for the first time this winter, and it's mid-January. So I'm just, again, commenting on how it doesn't get cold here. We're gonna pop in the greenhouse real quick. Maya has been working in here, and I needed to come out and check my seedlings. You can see he's got his camera set up. Everything out here, as I've said, is frost hardy. It can handle freezing. It's currently a little over 60 in here, which is, I mean, it's freezing outside. I am gonna go ahead and turn my heater on. He's been working on the water lines, and he has the legs for the table built out there. So there's not just a ton of visible change in here yet, but he spent, I don't know, the better part of the last 2 days working. I don't know, he's got a lot done. Excuse me, yawning. I have not had a super productive day. It is a weekend and it's freezing, so I've been inside. I asked Maya to check these seedlings this morning. He came out here and I said, can you make sure that they all look okay? And he texted me and said they look fine, but I wanted to come make sure that they did indeed have enough water. So far, not much new has sprouted. I think Maya said this morning he was going to have at least a couple of videos of this process. Oh, there are the legs over there. See? I asked him to make them out of the iron pipe that we do all our shelving out of. I think it's going to be really pretty and be able to withstand water, which obviously there's going to be water involved because there's plants. The chickens don't seem to mind the cold. A few of them are already up in the coop, and that's unusual. It's a little early for that. Right now, out here in these high tunnels, it's really not any warmer than it is outside. In the middle of the day, probably it would be whenever it's sunny, but by the evening, it's at the same ambient temperatures outdoors. I get asked a lot about whether we're ever going to heat our high tunnels, and I doubt it. We have such a mild climate that I don't really feel the need to go through a lot of, you know, extra measures to try to extend our season and like grow frost tender stuff outside of the time we have, because we have enough time to grow. Really enough. I mean, I can put up for the year with a 200-day growing season, and then in the winter I can grow cold weather things out here just fine, and that works for me. One thing I think anybody who wants to grow their own food should do, whether you're growing your food yet or not, is to learn to eat seasonally. That's why I don't work super hard to like try to grow peppers over the winter, tomatoes over the winter in a greenhouse, because even if I were able to keep them warm enough not to die, I would have to supplement light and heat to the point that they wouldn't taste as good as they do in the summer. And I don't want to grow tomatoes that taste like disappointment. I'll leave that to the grocery stores. I want to have nice, fresh, hot in the sun, concentrated sugar, sweet tomatoes. I'll just wait to eat them when they shine. Jamie, you want to go inside? You had enough of that cold? Me too. Alright, back in the house. That's all I could take. I was literally only out there for as long as I was talking to you guys. Oh, I'm going to be cold for the rest of the night now. I need to make some hot tea. My kids were playing Legos. Come down here. I'm looking for my jar of elderberries, and I'm really hoping they did not get carried out to the other. Well, I need this, astragalus root, rose hips, some cinnamon stick chips. Y'all, a couple summers ago, I got real sick. And you all found out about it at the end of the summer, which is when it all kind of came to a head and became really obvious to everybody, because I started having these kind of autoimmune attacks where my body was like just attacking itself, and I had these very, very obvious rashes all over my body. Anyway, that summer, I was really sick that summer, and I was having a really hard time just keeping up with everything. Will, who works for me, his wife Taylor, at the time she was working at a restaurant, and it was just kind of part-time. She had some extra time, and I asked if I could hire her to come out a couple days a week and kind of help me with the kitchen stuff, because she's very skilled in the kitchen. It was an amazing thing, such a blessing, and a great, I mean, it was great because I really needed the help, but it was also great because I love Taylor. If you know, you might know Will has YouTube at this point. He has a channel, Honeybee Hollow Gardens, and he does some filming here as well as at his place and his gardens. But Taylor actually started a channel also called Honeybee Hollow Home, and she has such a beautiful style of storytelling and sharing, and she shares a lot of kitchen stuff and just kind of the rhythms of home. All of this to say, when Taylor was here that summer helping, anytime she separated the cream from the milk, she labeled it Hefty Creams. And so now I have lids that this says Tulsi. We reuse lids, you know, like especially if it's just storing stuff, you know. And occasionally I'll still come across a lid that says Hefty Creams on the top. I just have to smile and think of Taylor because it's so funny. She left her mark. Oh man, I just love her. All right, well, my elderberry's not over there, which means it's out in the pantry. All right, I'm gonna look up here, maybe one more place. Just note the great lengths I'm willing to go to not have to go back outside where it's freezing. Aha! I found it. It was in the tea cabinet. Not where it goes, but you know. I have my kids clean my kitchen. My teenagers especially. It's part of what they do for their allowance. And it means sometimes we're playing like hide and seek in the kitchen. And at first that frustrated me, but then my teenagers started becoming like dangerously close to adulthood. And I realized that once all my kids are gone, I'm going to have to clean the kitchen myself. And I would so much rather search for the things with them here than know where everything is. And I will. Once they're gone, I'll know where everything is. And I'll have to clean the kitchen myself. And I'll miss them terribly. So here I am smiling after spending 7 minutes looking for elderberry in my house. I'm glad I didn't go outside looking for it and then come back in, because I'd probably be less cheerful about it. All right, I've got to make some elderberry syrup. I do have a recipe for this. It's on my website. It's also in my First Time Homesteader book, if you have a copy of that lying around. I'm pretty sure most of these elderberry recipes are about the same. I actually don't really measure anything with it anymore. Maya is starting to get a little bit cruddy. And he just asked me today if I would get some elderberry syrup started for him. I try to keep it made this time of year, and we went through what I had about 2 weeks ago. My kids going to school outside of home has made for much, I guess I could say, punier winters, but really not that bad. I mean, we all have pretty strong immune systems, considering that, you know, being on a farm and eating this kind of food, and then also handling such a diverse microbiome on a daily basis between soil and animals and the inevitable manure that you come in contact with, like, we stay pretty healthy. But as soon as anybody starts getting puny, we do, you know, try to support our immune systems with things like elderberry syrup, and then different teas and stuff like that. And lots of broth, just things that can really nourish us well. We're actually going to dinner tonight at some of our friends, Wes and Lori. You guys have met Wes. He's been on videos multiple times. He is really good at smoking meat, and he is smoking a couple of ducks that we raised. So I'm pretty excited about that. On Saturdays, we usually do what's called fend for yourself days. So for lunch and breakfast, I typically do not prepare food on Saturdays. We do leftovers, or the kids can get into like sandwiches, or they can eat just like some meat and cheese and fruit. And so I haven't cooked today, and I wasn't going to, but then Maya asked me for the elderberry syrup, and since, you know, he's been freezing his butt off out there taking care of my greenhouse, I was like, yeah, honey, I'll thank you. I said I wasn't going to get in the kitchen today, but I will now. I think tomorrow I'll probably do like a big pot of soup or something that's just really nourishing. I may see if Wes doesn't have plans for the duck carcasses after he smoked them. I may see if I could snag those. If he's just going to compost them or give them to the pigs, I may see if I could get them and make some broth out of them. One time he smoked, I think it was some turkeys, and I took the carcasses home and made the broth. And if you ever have the opportunity to get carcasses from some smoked birds for broth, it is so good. It's like very heavy in the smoky flavor. So if you don't like that, you obviously, this wouldn't be your thing. But I made like a chicken and rice soup or chicken noodle soup, something along those lines with that smoked broth. And it was probably to date one of my favorite soups that I've ever had. It was so good. And we could go for some good nourishing soup around here. Well, I didn't have a real huge reason for popping in today, but you may have noticed, I know several of you commented this week, I have been vlogging more where I can. Some of them will be more creative than others. Some of them will be just little pop-ins like this. But this time of year, I always feel really inspired to turn the camera on and share with you guys. I've gotten better over the years at really being intentional through the holiday season to rest. I don't make as much content and spend a lot of time with my kids and hanging out with my family and just like dreaming about the next year. But when it comes into the next year and planning for the new season and doing projects and getting ready, I just love being able to turn the camera on and share that whole process with you guys. So thank you for hanging out with me today and all the days that you do. I bless you. Until next time.